People complain that they don't have enough time. But it can be time, that is, something that works for us or against us. Of course, it's not time per se that is working against us. It's what we're doing with the time that we have. And in a sense, one could state that no one gives us time except for us. That is, with what you're occupying yourself and your time, doing what? What are you engaged in? Unfortunately, many of us are engaged in destructive use of time, specifically with the destructive thoughts, which bring about destructive emotions, which usually start, they ignite continuously internally, in the internal world, in your thinking, in the inner self-talk, the subvocal speech, if you will. And then it manifests on your face, it manifests in your body, it manifests in your lack and desire to improve upon yourself, to do something good, to see yourself as ending up as somebody who's good, who's better than yesterday, to lift yourself off and out of the mud. And that has to do with our bias. The bias that says, oh, I'm not improving at all. There's no change that I can notice, or anyone for that matter, that is taking place within me. That type of a talk. Usually we will not fully express this, outward, in an outwardly manner where people could hear it, unless you go to a therapist or you have a very honest companion or friends who will tell you what's going on, and then you can feel comfortable enough to share that with them, which can be helpful because it relieves some of the pressure and it also challenges those beliefs. Challenge would come from those people around you who are in fact seeing improvements when you are not. But why aren't you? The self-sabotage is a formidable enemy for many of us. Yes, it has a lot to do with our childhood, with our upbringing, with the influencers in our lives, and sometimes also the actions we've committed, and let's say not the so good type of actions we've committed that have made us want to do a 180, and we work towards improving ourselves. And let's say if it's a person who has not lived a virtuous life or has made wrong decisions, destructive behavior in the past, and has taken serious steps towards living a virtuous life, to not cause harm and pain to others, as well as to oneself, and protect themselves and the world around them through thought, speech, and action. If the tendency of self-sabotage is strong, it's a ghostly presence, but it's a very menacing, it's a daily battle that the person will have to engage in, and not take it for granted. Those moments of insight that says, wow, look how far I've come. I used to be that, now I'm this. In those moments, they're lovely when you awaken and see how much you've come, you've advanced from that lowly state of existing. However, it does not last, because the old tendencies of self-sabotage are always there. They will creep in, they will try to convince you that you have not made any improvements at all. This is where you have to be very careful. Simply because you are not seeing those incredible, exponentially dramatic improvements, those peaks in changes towards the better or towards the goals that you have in mind, not occurring from day to day, month to month, year to year even, the way you have anticipated them, does not mean that you have not been improving, that you have not been putting real effort into making those changes happen. For this, communication, as I mentioned, to people that are trustworthy, is essential. If you are having a difficulty to confront your old tendencies by journaling, by writing it out, and I've mentioned this many times where it's a before and after glimpse at yourself. Take up a situation, take up an event that's happening, which unjustly or unfairly you're treating yourself because of, such as, this event has happened in the past, because the self-sabotaging mindset will bring in things from the past as if they are continuously happening now. To challenge those false beliefs, it's always essential for you to take inventory of where you are now compared to where you were. Hence, you take a situation, an event, and you look at it, but honestly, truthfully. As in, I know that 10 years ago, I did this or these things, and I feel horrible about that. Okay. Do you feel horrible because you're continuously doing those things, engaging in such behavior? Or because of the fact that it took place? Well, I'm not doing them, so because of the fact that it did take place because I did it. Okay, when you did it? When did you do it? I did it 10 years ago. It could be 5, it could be whatever, for the person. Okay, but answer me this. Are you still continuing living with such behavior, engaging in such behavior? And if the answer is no, absolutely not, that is what your inner being needs to hear. Otherwise, it's just conceit. It's an egotistical, terrible, devastating way of thinking, because what you're doing is, a circle. Sometimes a person sees a circle and they look at it as a counterclockwise or a clockwise pattern of movement. And they might see, I'm using it as a metaphor. I'm not the first one using this, of course. Many have used it. So basically, look at the circle pattern. Every time this happens, every time this person doesn't smile to me, a coworker, this and that, immediately my mind drops into thinking, oh, it's because they remember something, or they heard something about me, or I've done something bad, or I'm about to lose that relationship with that person, which I don't want to lose. So all this is negative, toxic. It's conceited, because you're looking at the other person in a position of, in comparison to yours, much better than yours, and you're losing out, basically. That's conceit in Buddhism. So the circle, when you're looking at it, you will see, oh, it's going in circle, oh, there it goes again. I'm not improving at all. I'm back where I started. Well, when you look at the facts, you will see that you're not where you started. You're not back where you're square one. No, because you're looking at it from top down. You need to change your focus, looking at it from the side, where you see that circle is no circle at all because it is a spiral. You're going up. You're going up towards beautifying yourself, towards improving yourself to such levels that you are in fact unrecognizable from who you were then. That's why you're not doing those things that you used to do 10, 15, 5 years ago. But why is this? Why do you feel? Why do you think that where there's no improvement? Well, welcome to the human race, because this is the brain or the mind doing its thing. In Buddhism, we call it sankhara. The habitual drives, those deep, deep tendencies of thought, speech, bodily actions that we do not question. And there needs to be that questioning. There has to be that questioning so that you, as I said, take inventory to look at what it is that you're doing in comparison to what it was that you used to do. Because the mind doesn't care for time. Meaning, it will look at the past as if it's happening now. It looks at the future and it thinks, oh, it's happening now. That's why people most of the time are caught in panic and fear, which is unfortunately something that today's powers that be in the world, that's what they want the whole planet to be functioning as. The population of the planet, nearly 10 billion of us, are panic-stricken. And they want to maintain that. That's how you maintain wars, perpetual wars. And if you take any of these so-called leaders in the world who are pushing for wars, 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 if you give them a piece of paper and some coloring pencils, close the door, take away their phones, drag them away from their milieus and whatever surroundings they're in, and throw them together into a room, lock them in with those papers and some coloring pencils and say, sit down, shut up, and be creative. Do something. Doodle. Doodle. The world will be a miraculous place. People don't do that. Because we are stuck. When you are kept in a panic, fearful mode, you will shut down. There's no way you could see the spiral. There's no way you could even breathe deeply. We're holding on. The muscles in the body are so tight, especially around the respiratory system. The diaphragm is almost always tight, or the gut is always tight. The back muscles are tight. The neck muscles are tight. The chest, forget it. But that's how we experience life, unfortunately, most of us, going through life. And that should not be the case. You are not here to fight against time. You are not here to fight against anyone, to fight against anything other than our own habitual patterns, our own defilements. In Buddhism, we call them kilesa. Those havoc-causing poisons in the heart. The greed, passionate drive, that lust, the hatred, the anger, the dislike, and the delusion. People often forget about the Buddha. Before he became the Buddha, the night of his awakening, Mara showed up. Mara ran out of arrows to shoot at him. Arrows of deception, arrows of his disgust towards anything that is pure. The beauty of Siddhartha Gautama as he was sitting there under the Bodhi tree after 4.5 Mahakalpas of having spent perfecting his qualities to become a Buddha. And there was that moment, final moment after such a long time. And Mara, after all his tricks, realizing that all those tricks didn't work at all on Gautama, he turns to him and points at his seat, at the Siddhartha Gautama's seat, his meditation seat. And he says, "You have no right to be sitting there." By what right? What right do you give yourself? Who gave you the right to sit there? You don't have any rights to sit there, to claim that you're going to attain Buddhahood, to claim that you're going to be basically gain freedom from me. Everybody's my slave. That's what Mara was saying. Everybody, from the gods, highest gods, to the lowest of beings. Everybody's my slave because I have them in my grip. I have them because I work with the kileshas. They're mine. I am them. You are mine. So you have no right to free yourself from the defilements of your heart. I own you, basically, he was saying. What right do you have to be sitting there to cut loose from illusion, to attain awakening? Whatever that is, because Mara does not know what it is. And the Buddha to be, Siddhartha Gautama, reached over with his hand and touched the ground, the earth, and he said, "The earth is my witness. I have gained all the rights to be sitting here. For all this time that I have been working on my perfections of truthfulness, loving kindness, metta, energy." At that moment, Mara disappears. That was his last ditch effort, because none of his tricks worked on him. And that's why he was desperate to throw that at the Buddha. What right do you have? And that is the self-sabotaging thought that we all experience during the day. Whenever you're working towards something good, there's that negative self-talk. We have different terms for it, right? Psychology, pop psychology came up with different terms, and such as limiting belief or beliefs, self-doubt, worry. All these things have to do with our concept of ourselves, but we need to expand and look at it multidimensionally. Just like when you were looking at the circle, thinking it's a circle, what you needed to do was to look from the side. Look at it from an angle point, and then you see that it's actually a spiral. You're going up, and similarly, conversely, you could also be going down, and that's where a lot of people, unfortunately, by relinquishing their standards of practice, by saying, well, yeah, I attained this, or I'm a good person, I'm a this and that. Meanwhile, they're allowing themselves to slip a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit, a few lies here, a few tiny little things there. Yeah, but I'm not hurting anyone. Yeah. And then they see, I'm still practicing, I'm still working on my purity. Meanwhile, they're looking at it again from the top, seeing it as, yeah, I'm improving, imagining that it's a spiral going up. Meanwhile, they're not being fair to themselves or reality and honest, rather, and then look at the side and then see that it's actually going down. The quality of life has to be improving. If there's a spiral going up, there has to be more peace. There has to be more insightful living in the quality of your life. And with that, becoming more playful, as I was saying. Imagine yourself as a kid and with a piece of paper and some coloring pencils. How would you color your life? How would you describe it? How would you paint it? How would you draw it? How would you color it? Because oftentimes, if not always, what we do is we just get a piece of paper and we cover it with black ink completely, where there's nothing left. And we're thinking that we are being fair to ourselves. No, when you are painting with thick brush strokes of negativity, based on how you felt in the past because of some things that you've done that you're not proud of, well, that you have to be honest and say, am I doing such things? No, okay. Where's the coloring pencils? Let me be fair in my thinking towards the Buddha. Had to see himself. The Buddha, to be Siddhartha, had to look at himself and see that this was a pure, good, wholesome goal that he was working towards. So nothing could withstand that. And he had absolutely zero bad intentions in doing it. That's all you need. So, in practical terms, what you can do is, when you're having a negative state, emotions, oftentimes they're coming from sankharas. They are the sankharas. It's not like sankharas go away during the day and then they come back at weird hours of the day or the morning or at night. No, they're always there. If you're moving, if you're alive, unless you're an arahant, of course, unless you're fully awakened. Sankharas are going to be there. They will be showing up. But because of the past that we have had, some more than others, the tendency to self-doubt, to be hurtful and hurling insults or looking down at yourself, basically not to be enough. That's a terrible one, right? Always doubting yourself, no matter what you do. You might be in the perfect weight category for your age and size, etc., and your gender, and you're always looking for somebody who is better than that, completely ignoring where you are at. You're healthy. Are you doing everything you can to succeed in this thing that you're trying to tackle? Yes. Honestly, yes. Okay. You might not have reached the goal that you want. It's not about lowering your expectations, but also being fair. Look at where you were to where you are now. Okay? And the fact that you have not yet reached that expected goal does not negate the work that you have done so far. That's what I'm trying to say. The Buddha had worked for 4.5 Mahakalpas, but that moment where he was not awakened yet felt like an eternity. If he allowed his self-doubt to kick in, Mara in a sense, and delay his progress, he would have given up for a whole lifetime and then died without having become an arahant, having become the Buddha. This is where you have to be realistic, while at the same time being fair to your goals and intentions, to the state of being, and not allow the old self-beliefs to come in and sabotage you. So learn to look from the side, look to be fair, look for evidence, good or the bad. If you're feeling miserable, yes, that friend might not look at me and I think they might be angry at me, or they might have heard about something about me. It was like, oh, what can I do? That's a panic. No good state is going to come out of it, ever. So you need to quickly flip to the opposite. Your emotional state, flip it over. Change, switch to something that feels good. Because you're not inside your friend's mind. You don't know what they're going through or the situation is. So it's not necessarily that bad scenario that is playing out. So your focus has to be on looking at that bad scenario and dropping it immediately. It might be true, of course, that is a possibility, but it is not the only possibility. So the work has to be done with ourselves. That's why the real enemy is always here inside of us. No matter how many we might, actually have enemies outside, physically in people, fine. But that's secondary, tertiary in importance compared to the real enemies that shackle us, bind us, yoke us into a fixed, rigid state that pretends that nothing's changed. We're the same people we were. No. The first characteristic of existence is anicca. Nothing is constant, including our negative states. So the delusion of there being a permanent state, we project that onto our bad actions or bad states, whatever it might be in the past, and we think that it's perpetuating forever. There's no such time. There's no such thing. Everything is in a state of flux, including the negative states we've undergone. Especially now, as you're looking and you're seeing, oh, I'm not the same person I was then. I don't do those things I used to do anymore. Oh, so you mean to say I need to celebrate myself? Yes! That's what I use the image of a piece of paper with coloring pencil. That's a metaphor I'm using for celebrating yourself. When was the last time you were smiling wholeheartedly? That's why I was mentioning how these world leaders who are always engaged in, war, this is, we're going to come, they're going to do, we're going to war. These people have never actually been shot at. They've lived in, very protected lives in a sense. They have no idea what they're talking about. And then you look at their faces, it's just miserable, full of lies, deceptions. And they're so somber looking, it's all fake. Men and women, these world leaders. They don't smile, they don't laugh, they don't have real laughter like kids do. That's why you need to set them off into some camp somewhere, these grown-up so-called world leaders, and just let them be like children for a change. Lighten up. So that's another way of looking at yourself. Lighten up and relax, because you're not going to get into improved state of mind, of being, by pushing and shoving yourself, by hurling insults at yourself, by claiming to be a bad person when you're not. See the spiral going up. Please. So good.